Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the call. This is Jeff Boyle, and we are going to get started here pretty quickly with a very, to me, a very special guest, somebody that I respect very, very much, and somebody that has absolutely been important to our business. And I'll switch the screen there, make sure you know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Dr. Dwight Lundell. And Dr. Lundell is really the who's who of doctors. And the best part about him is that he is so available to be able to help us understand some of these concepts as we go out and not just share these with loved ones, but to share these with the world as a whole. And what I love about Doc is you look at this, I mean, everything from 25 years of cardiovascular or thoracic surgery on every different board imaginable. And he's in the Beating Heart Hall of Fame. I know he's been able to save countless lives with his work. And he's received a lot of accolades for that as well. Not just being the top doctor, but also being chief resident, not just at University of Arizona, but also, as you can see right there, he's been a resident at Yale University hospitals. He was elected chief of staff and chief of surgery. And I think you guys will see that not only was he important in the hospitals that he's at, but you're going to see that he is definitely going to be able to make a difference in your business. And what I love about Dr. Lundell is this. This guy never stops. Some guys may retire and do something simple, but not Doc. This is a two-time Ironman champion of Arizona, Ironman here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and also 2011 ITU long course world champion. This guy is amazing. If you're around him, you can feel his concern. You can feel how important these things are that he's about to share with you. And as I was preparing this presentation for Doc and going through his presentations, I just thought I'd love to be able to do this in a little bit different form and kind of go through with him on the questions, and just not just the questions that I have, but also the questions that you guys are probably going to have as you start to go through this. And so, Doc, I really appreciate you being on the call with us. Are you here?
I am here and glad to be so. Thank you very much for that nice introduction.
Well, you deserve it. And anybody that's worked with you starts to understand really just how valuable you are to helping us. The name of the presentation is Back to the Basics. And, as I went through this with you and started to understand it, I start to get an idea of why you're so passionate about it. And do you mind just taking just a few minutes and kind of talking in the beginning, even before you get into some of these slides that we're going to go through, why you became so passionate as a heart surgeon, a cardiovascular expert, how you became so passionate about what we eat and what we put in our body.
Well, I realized that although we were very successful with coronary bypass surgery and saving lives and extending lives and making people be able to live without symptoms, I came to realize once I sort of looked up from being busy and looked out at somebody's chest that I really was not curing anyone. Yes, I was saving their lives. Yes, we were alleviating symptoms. And it seemed like all of medicine was focused on the same thing. We gave up trying to cure anything. Disease management was the big buzzword. And so heart disease was called a chronic incurable disease. Diabetes, a chronic incurable disease. Obesity, a chronic incurable disease. Now, that bothered me because I knew after I had once again lifted my head up out of the chest and began to dive into the research and really reflect back to the basics of human physiology that we didn't have to have these diseases and we could do something better. And in surgery, I was always looking for something to do better. Can we do this better? Can we do this safer? And that's what led me to change my career and embark on this journey.
Well, and one of the things, even this first slide that we were preparing, you talk about trust, and after that, I'll kind of let you go through those first two slides. But why is it that you started to see in this trust part became so much more important to you?
Well, trust really means a firm belief in the reliability of something. And we, as individuals and as a society, we trust our safety to the Army and the police and laws and rules. And we've trusted our health to the doctors and the health authorities. And the question I have we been betrayed in that trust by the health authorities and by our doctors? Now, betrayal, if you go to the next slide, really means a violation of trust. It means to deliver to the enemy. Now, it's more than just me who's saying we've been betrayed by the health authority. If you go to the next one, this gentleman is the editor of the most prestigious medical journal in the world. And I hesitate to read slides, but these words are too important for us not to do so. Much of the scientific literature, perhaps half, may be simply untrue. And in the last sentence, science has taken a turn toward the darkness. This is from the editor of the world's most prestigious medical journal.
Well, he's not alone. As I started to do these slides with you, I mean, do you find as you were part of this that there's a lot of people that are starting to feel this way in the medical profession?
Yes, there's more and more literature. More and more people coming out every day. There are more and more studies being retracted, actually, after the errors have been found. There's now a website called Retraction Watch, where they publicize all the studies published in these prestigious journals that have been retracted because of these errors of flagrant conflict of interest, fashionable trends in research, and invalid studies. So it's not just me, but not just Richard Horton, but many others, including the editor for more than 20 years of our most prestigious medical journal in the United States, and maybe the most second prestigious journal in the world, the New England Journal of Medicine. It is simply no longer possible to believe much of the clinical research that is published, or to rely on the judgment of trusted physicians or authoritative medical guidelines. I take no pleasure in this conclusion, which I reach slowly and reluctantly over my 2 decades as an editor of the New England Journal of Medicine. That actually should scare us all. If we can't believe what's published about health in these prestigious journals, then we certainly must ignore any information about health that's published in the lay press.
Well, Doc, one of the things that kind of concerned me as I was going through this presentation and starting to prepare for it and get this ready with you is that when I would do a search for these two just who's who of doctors, you would start to see things like Quack Watch, where people, and I'm sure who knows where that Quack Watch is funded, but you started to see that these people were receiving enormous criticism for their criticism of this medical research. Have you found that the doctors are almost encouraged to shut up about a lot of things that are going on?
Well, absolutely. Number one, medicine is reluctant to change. Sometimes science is reluctant to change, but we should be able to change. We should, when faced with facts, when faced with real, reproducible, accurate research, we should change. But unfortunately, over the last few years, the last 20 or 30, medicine has changed. It's become a very big economic engine. And we first got in the business of giving dietary advice a long time ago. And, starting with a basic 7, I'm old enough to remember that on the cereal boxes, starting back in 1943. In the 50s, the American Heart Association gave these dietary recommendations that we should follow a low-fat diet, avoiding all animal fats and cholesterol. We should eat only vegetable oils like Crisco, for example. We needed 6 servings of healthy whole grains. And it was a very simple calculation based on the laws of thermodynamics. Calories in, calories out. And if you were overweight, the solution was very simple. Eat less and move more. Now, we followed that advice. We lowered our consumption of fat and continue to do so. We switched over from butter to margarine. And what was the result of this dietary advice, which we started getting in the 50s and then became codified with the food pyramid in 1980? We have epidemics of diabetes, obesity, heart disease. Alzheimer's strikes fear in the heart of every baby boomer and their family. Um, so the result has been disastrous.
Well, Doc,
The
can I ask,
result has been
when you saw
failure.
these numbers with your colleagues, and I know that you took a big chance because, you're you're in these leadership positions. You have this hospital where you're performing these surgeries. You were obviously prestigious. I'm sure that you had a tremendous income. Didn't I'm sure as you started to do some of this research yourself that it struck fear in you, but also I would guess that you got a lot of kickback as you started to bring some of these things to the light with the doctors that you worked with.
I absolutely did. The hospital, of course, I was once again chief of staff and chief of surgery at the second largest heart hospital in the country. And they were not interested in having their revenue stream interrupted by curing heart disease. And they weren't interested in having diabetes being cured because diabetics have heart disease. So they didn't really want to hear about this, and I got a lot of resistance and a lot of criticism.
Well, what's so scary about it is when you sent this slide over to me, to think that, of course, that medicine had become so driven by not so much the oath that you had taken as a doctor, but is driven by medicine. And this one really scared me a lot that you sent over.
Well, once again, the dietary advice on our current medical guidelines really, the failure is spectacular. And you can read the numbers there. The World Health Organization now lists all of these things as non-communicable diseases, meaning they're not caused by infection. And that's basically almost all of disease is non-communicable. We used to die of infections, and we've made great strides in public health and sanitation, and particularly antibiotics. But we've been such a failure in these other diseases, and I believe it's because there is so much money involved that we don't want to cure these things.
Well, what's crazy is you kind of see
And
it on these fringe websites where people talk about it, and even these amazing doctors that see it firsthand. That the money truly is altering the way that we see it, and you had mentioned that even with the dieting programs, that they make money the better the more we fail.
I want to emphasize that it's not your doctor, it's not individual doctors being greedy and doing this. It's led from the top. It's led by drug industry, it's led by hospitals, it's led by food manufacturers and big sugar. And they've lied to us just like big tobacco did. You remember, no, everybody's too young to remember when, more doctors smoked Camels than any other cigarette. And so the sugar industry and the soda industry certainly doesn't want us to succeed, and the diet industry really doesn't either. There's right now in America 100 million dieters, and you can see there's 60 billion in sales, but the sad fact is that even this fails. We have the chances of you losing weight and keeping it off more than 2 years are less than 5%.
That's pretty amazing with it, and these are some shocking stats as well here.
Well, it is, and the sad thing is that we don't cure heart disease. Once again, I treated 5,000 people with a coronary bypass, but I didn't cure any of them. And diabetes to me is even worse. With our current treatment modalities and medical standards, no one will be cured of diabetes. It will be a chronic illness that will lead to the diabetic complications that we all know of: blindness, kidney failure, amputations, and ultimately death from heart disease.
Well, and as you go through that, and now as we're obviously some of these things, as you start to explain from a doctor's point of view, help us non-doctors understand what this really is doing to us.
All right, we're a very complicated piece of equipment, the human body. And the French physiologist Claude Bernard coined the term milieu intérieur, if you're good at French, meaning internal environment. And we have to control things inside of our body very carefully, and we do it in a hostile external environment. I mean, there are millions of chemicals and trillions of bacteria in, around, and on us, and we defend ourselves with barriers, like, for example, the skin. And we don't think of the respiratory tract as a barrier, but really it is, because we breathe in almost 30,000 gallons of air per day, and that air is not always clean. And the intestinal tract, imagine this, has a surface area the size of a football field. And there are lots of unfriendly bacteria and other chemicals in our intestinal tract that we have to make a decision. Millions and trillions of decisions every day. What's good, what's bad, what to let in, what to keep out. And we do that with a robust immune system, and we do that with neurological and hormonal feedback systems. Now, every cell in our body coded in the DNA is for that cell to survive until its duty is up. And it's to survive to help the whole organism survive. So that's coded in all of our DNA, the drive to survive. But we must keep a defense against the hostile external environments if we're going to do that.
Well, and I think that that's, as complicated a machine as it is, it's also an extremely brilliant machine. And I think that that's kind of why your mission, as you start to go through and as I've gotten to know you, of feeding this machine and giving it what it needs and keeping away from it, you really are passionate about this problem that we have with sugar.
Well, I am, once again, because I think almost all of the things that we have can be cured if we have the proper diet. Now, we're talking about homeostasis, and we keep our temperature at 98.6. And if we get a couple of degrees on either side of that, we have problems. And we keep our sodium in a very narrow range, and potassium in a very narrow range. And so we have a certain amount of those things circulating at all times. And I was having fun the other day with some doctors and some residents, asking them if they knew how much sugar was circulating in their blood at any one point in time. Well, none of them had the answer, not the doctor, not the resident, not the medical student. And the answer is, if we do the math, there's 5 liters of blood in our body at any times, and there's 10 deciliters per liter. That would be 50 deciliters. And blood sugar, the normal range of between 70 and 100, so let's just take 100 as the high limit. And if we know that 5 grams equals 5,000 milligrams, and we do the math, at any one point in time, there is 1 teaspoon of sugar circulating our blood. Another way to say it is, 1 teaspoon of sugar will take your blood sugar from 0 to 100. And so we have a challenge on that environment.
Well, and Doc, I think the interesting thing is as you go through what modern meals, when you'd sent this over to me, you had sent it over to the American meal. I just got back from Kazakhstan, and I've seen that one of the great things that we have exported to the world is the modern meal, and this isn't this just tremendous disservice that we have done. This slide to me was very, very interesting on how much sugar we have in our diet.
Yeah, of course, you can read it there, and it's astounding. No one would think there's 75 grams of sugar in the fries, or 100 grams in the soda. And I was in a convenience market today, filling up with fuel, and I go inside, and they're filling up. There's a line to get 32 ounces of soda. It's 100 grams of sugar. So that meal is 50 teaspoons of sugar, which equals a blood sugar of over 5,000, which is lethal. Now, we have insulin, we have ways of trying to handle this, but it's a huge, huge challenge, and ultimately it breaks down our ability to defend ourselves against this environment. If I was to sit out in the porch in Phoenix here with no shade and no water, ultimately I'm going to have my ability to maintain my body temperature and my fluid status overwhelmed. And we ultimately overwhelm our ability to control sugar. And when homeostasis is overwhelmed in any of these ways, we have injury, we have inflammation, sometimes we have death. And we have these hormonal cycles that and feedback mechanisms end up being disrupted if we let our homeostasis be disrupted like we do with the monstrous doses of sugar. Now here's the real question. Why do we overeat it? Why do those folks in Kazakhstan who not too many years ago were thin and pretty healthy, why are they now eating this junk? And here's what they don't want us to know. Coca-Cola, Pepsi, big sugar, big soda, big food, chips, they don't want us to know that the real reason is addiction. Now, the American Psychological Association defines addiction as having 3 of these 7 items, only 3 of these. Now, if you think about yourself and think about sugar, I'm sure most of us have at least 3 of these. We're tolerant, we don't like it if we withdraw, we take large amounts. We really want to cut down, but it never happens. We sneak out at night to go down to the convenience market and get a soda or a cherry pie. At any rate, addiction is real. There's just no doubt about the fact that sugar is an addictive substance.
Well, this one I found was pretty wild. This I was shocked to kind of go through this one with you. Amazing.
Well, in rat experiments, at least, they preferred sugar over cocaine. And we can look at brain scans of people and see the same areas of the brain lighted up on a PET scan here with cocaine and with excessive sugar consumption. So it's not just behavioral that proves that sugar is addictive. It's actually anatomical, physiological, and there's just not a question anymore that sugar is addictive. Now, we all have different ways of being addicted, and to say it's an addiction is not to diminish the tragedies that occur with drug and alcohol addiction, but it's just as real. And basically, all of you, what's not tragic about a heart attack? What's not tragic about a lower leg amputation? What's not tragic about going blind from diabetes? It's just as big a tragedy. It takes longer for sugar to destroy us than it does for cocaine or alcohol, but it's just as absolutely sure that it will.
Well, and I think the most dangerous thing is we don't. I mean, no parent in their right mind would provide alcohol or cocaine or one of these drugs to their children. But we start children at a very young age with things that are just loaded with sugar, and that's the difference with it. I think that maybe it takes longer, but that's also why we see this obesity and diabetes epidemic, as you're calling it.
Absolutely. I mean, a mother would never let her child sit down and eat 9 teaspoons of sugar out of the sugar bowl, but she happily gives him an 8-ounce can of juice, which is exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing.
Well, explain a little bit
Now,
now on these ones how it is that it's really affecting us, and I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. That I've even heard that the bites, licks, and the tastes can start to have a dramatic impact as over time as well.
well, just like we try to control our temperature and all the other things that make up our homeostasis, we should control the amount of fat we carry around, because we can't survive if we, all weighed 500 pounds, we wouldn't do very well. And so we have a feedback mechanism that's controlled by the hormone leptin. It's produced in the fat cells, and the more leptin we have, the more fat we have, the more leptin we have. This then should send a signal to the brain that says, we have enough fat, you need to up our metabolic rate, and you need to lower how much we're eating. Conversely, if we have very low fat stores, it tells us to slow down our metabolism, and it gives us, once again, that primal drive to go out and find food. And the problem is when we have other disruptions of homeostasis, like sugar, which causes inflammation, or other chemicals and behaviors that cause inflammation, our liver produces this protein called C-reactive protein. It, in fact, binds with leptin and then won't let leptin attach itself to the receptors in the brain. So even though we're overweight, we're still hungry. And I've stood staring into the pantry over the refrigerator 9 o'clock at night, looking at my big belly, not really hungry, but wanting something and not knowing what it really is. This is leptin resistance. So not only do we have addiction, but we have our hormone leptin that's disrupted by inflammation, mostly caused by sugar.
Wow. Well, and now obviously after as I went through this, I started thinking, my goodness. But as you start to go through some of these answers, it really is impressive to think of the career that you had and how you thought outside the box. And I'm sure that this was something that disrupted a lot of different things in your career. But this last part of it, I think for the bunch of people are on the call now, this is where the hope starts to come in. So kind of walk us through that, Doc.
Well, I will be happy to. See, addiction comes by taking a substance that gives us a reward, that gives us pleasure. And this happens in the brain. And when sometimes we do good things, they can be emotional, they give us good feelings in the brain, or they can be physiologic, like drugs, alcohol, or sugar. Now, the famous words of Amy Winehouse, gotta go to rehab. No, no, no. Unfortunately, maybe she should have gone. We lost a great talent. Now, the sad thing is, in spite of our positive feelings about rehab, it's not very successful. The cure rates for alcohol addiction and cocaine addiction and heroin addiction are on the order of 10% with our current rehab programs. Now, it's become a huge industry, about 30 billion annually. In Arizona alone, there's more than 1,000 residential treatment centers.
Wow.
And the interesting thing that all of these rehab places, including Betty Ford and the other big ones, they're all based on the principles that came a long time ago with Alcoholics Anonymous. And the fundamentals are that you're addicted because you have a moral failing. You're addicted because you have a moral failing, and the only way to get over your addiction is to be more moral or give your life over to a higher power, which is what Alcoholics Anonymous does. Now, unfortunately, that's not the answer. The cure rates, once again, sadly, are very low, because until we get over the idea that this is a moral failing and not a true physiologic problem like addiction and hormonal disruption, we are never going to succeed at this. Now, I'm used to success. My survival rate and success rate for coronary bypass was 99%. I want to succeed. And if I was going to change the health of America and succeed in curing heart disease, well, we had to do something different. We just had to do something different. Now, we're just beginning to take a look at maybe treating drug addictions with drugs, with other drugs. There is now in development a drug that binds with cocaine so that it doesn't stimulate the brain. So why would I take cocaine if I get no good feeling out of it? I wouldn't risk my freedom, my life, everything else. And there is drugs that block opiates. We have those, been around a long time, and yet we seem stuck on the moral side of it. Now, I'm sick of doctors telling me that, I'm a failure, that I'm obese and overweight because I'm just a glutton, and I'm sick of the failure and frustration. So I said to myself, if I can change the reward we get from eating sugar, maybe I can cure this addiction. maybe I can cure heart disease and diabetes. Or maybe, really, I can help people do it on their own. And that's why I developed Real Weight. It has ingredients in it that indeed do change the way we digest, absorb, and metabolize sugar. And we've done our own set of experiments where we demonstrated that given the same dose of sugar, before and after Real Weight made a dramatic difference. This product has been out now for 5 years. We have a huge number of people, old, young, every creed, every race, that have success with Real Weight because we said it's not your fault, it's not a moral failing, it's addiction. And Real Weight is the solution to that addiction.
Well, I know, Doc, that a lot of
Now,
people, especially that have experienced a lot of the other great products within RX, are asking, where does this fit in with that? And I, I know that as you're talking about, this specifically addresses that addiction to sugar. And do you mind addressing that just a little bit, and how it differentiates and even complements so many of the different things that many of our people are already accustomed to?
well, of course, once again, I designed this and formulated it to stop the huge rises in blood sugar we get after we eat sugar. And therefore, we are going to help people overcome that addiction and help them get healthier. That doesn't mean I don't need vitamins. That doesn't mean I don't need omega-3. I take it every day, and it's Omega Q is an absolutely brilliant product. The other vitamin products that we have at RX, and Asante is thrilled to be part of RX, are brilliant products. With the right kind of things, the approach that has been taken with the essential oils is right. Instead of being mysterious, you have X problem, match it with X oil, and problem solved. So I love that approach, and I love a lot of the other products that we have at RX, and they fit right in because we need, with our current nutrition, we need vitamins, minerals, trace minerals. We need them all, and we particularly need omega-3s. Now, the other piece of obesity and diabetes was hormonal disruption by inflammation. Now, our immune and inflammatory system is a miracle. Literally, all the chemicals and all the bacteria that are, and it's in the number of trillions, in us and on us and around us. And it's like sitting there with a barcode. Our immune system has to recognize every one of those things, and then it has to respond to them, whether it's kill them or whether it's let them in. It has to respond appropriately, and then it has to resolve the injury that was caused in the time that that bacteria or chemical was there. And so we knew that if we were going to succeed, we had to have something that would enhance and help the immune system. And lots of folks need help with the immune system, even if they're not overweight, and that's led to the development of IS-2. And IS-2 has in it particular compounds that go into every single white cell in our body and improve their function. Excuse me. It has some other ingredients that are brilliant, but it fits right in with helping us overcome the hormonal disruption that's caused by inflammation. Then we also need cellular nutrition. Some people have indicated that maybe we're starving the cells, and maybe some of this signal, maybe some of the signal to consume extra food comes from the cellular level. And so we've added Akia, which is a brilliant product. We've taken superfoods from the longevity hotspots around the fermented them for availability, and added probiotics for enhanced absorption and effectiveness. So these three products are the fundamentals of our weight loss and sugar control program
Well,
that
Doc,
we've called.
go ahead.
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. Before you go past the IKEA, I don't think people realize, especially as they're first coming in and being introduced to this one, the the huge amount of research that has been put into this product alone Do you mind discussing just a little bit of just these world superfood and the importance of a fermented food with these probiotics?
Sure. Well, the idea was to look at areas where people lived long and healthy lives. Take a look at what they ate. And so that was done. We did that. And we took the variety of foods that these people ate, all the way from Okinawa to California to Mexico to all around the world, and took these foods and combined them. And then fermentation really is the first step in digestion. And so we've taken that first step and fermented these ingredients once again, so that they're ready to be absorbed. They're absorbed. They don't go anywhere except where they're supposed to go. And then the probiotics, once again, our intestinal tract has a surface area the size of a football field. It's the largest immune organ in our whole body. And so if we put in the right kinds of organisms, and there's a lot of research now about the so-called microbiome, or the population of bacteria we have in our intestines. I'm not sure we have any answers yet, but we know it's important. And so without a specific answer, we've added probiotics to give us a general answer to the health of that very vital organ.
Well, and Doc, before you go by this, and we're about to wrap this up and take some of the questions of the people that are on there, are on the call, do you mind just sharing some of it? And I know there's people on this call that have asked me for more information, and that's why one of the reasons why we've done this webinar. But talk about some of the results that you have seen by the people using what a lot of your Asante people called the new you. So it's creating a new you with some of these ingredients. Can you talk about just some of the results that you've seen that really make you feel good about the decisions you've made to put these products together?
Well, absolutely. We started out with real weight alone with an experimental group. They were chosen, once again, both sexes, young, old, ranging from teenagers to 70-year-olds. And the response was dramatic. The weight loss was significant. It wasn't like this 30 pounds in 30 days nonsense that is a failure. But we took all of that and we put it together in the real life plan. And if you go to Asante.com, or if you go to the reallifeplan.com, you can get a visual on some of the results and some of the testimonials. There's some Facebook pages out there called 60-Day Transformation that also have visuals of the transformation that people have made using these. Now, the other important thing is that we started with real weight alone, and then we added the IS2 and the IKEA. But these products, all three of them, taken together, a pretty powerful trio. But they all can be used independently. Once again, if you're missing some key nutrients, IKEA is a great way to do it. If you have some challenge with the immune system, aches and pains, some chronic diseases, IS2 is going to be the key. And if you want to get over that sugar addiction, then our real weight is the fundamental for that.
Well, there's some questions, and we'll start to take them pretty quickly. But one of the questions is, how is it do you use or take these different products?
Well, that's detailed in the real life plan. We take real weight 30 minutes before every meal. We take an ounce of IS2 every day. IKEA can be taken in a drink every day, but when we start a weight loss program, we like to get a jump start or a blast, and we go 3 days doing 5 to 6 IKEA drinks every day and limit our food to nothing or very little. And this gives us a jump start. It gives us a cleanse. It allows us to start over, and most folks have lost 5 to 10 pounds in that first 3-day period, and that encourages them that shows them that they're no longer really truly addicted to sugar and that there's a way to overcome this. So that's the basics of how we start the real life plan and why it works as we go along. So it really is a solution to our diabetes epidemic.
The
And once again,
diabetes. Yeah,
these products don't
you
cure.
got that trademarked. You're gonna have to. I've never heard that before. Diabetes.
Diabetes, that's what I didn't invent it, but lots of people have called it that. Now, these products won't cure anybody. What they do is allow people to cure themselves. I want to emphasize that. They allow people to cure themselves. Now, Eric's is the opportunity company. And Jeff, you're about business and the business opportunity and helping people succeed in this RX business and this Asante business. Now, if I'm going into business, really, if I have 100 million people that desperately need me, that's going to be a great business. And I'm thrilled to be in it with you. I'm thrilled to have your skill as a business person to teach myself and the rest of us how to succeed, to help ourselves and to help others. It's an opportunity waiting for you and me.
Well, and Doc, as you started to go through this, and that's just in the United States. You figure as you start to expand, our neighbors to the south have now passed us in diabetes. And what's been really amazing to me is when I first started to travel the world 8 years ago, it was the first time I went to Japan, and I see far. My last trip to Japan last year, there was far more obesity there than there was 8 years ago, and it doesn't matter where I go. And because we're in so many different locations, the the opportunity is enormous to actually really help people. And I think that as a business person, and I've said that in the past, that what an amazing way to be able to make money by adding this line of products to this powerful line of products we already have, to be able to give people the nutrients that they need, to be able to give people the all these different solutions that we have. And it was really important for me to bring you on to start educating not just the Asante people on how these products marry together, but how it is that they are intelligently grouped by using these products as well. These Asante products that you spent so many times or so many years to be able to create. And I'm really grateful to have you on. And before you go, there's some questions that I'm gonna have to get out of here with just my one screen here. And there's a bunch of them here. I misspelled Asante. Someone's
All right.
absolutely
One other thought.
yeah.
There's been a lot in the news lately about the dramatic increase in drug prices. And just today, it was noted that the price of insulin is up dramatically. Now, if you have one of these chronic diseases, you have no more freedom. You're stuck. You have to pay what they charge if you want this insulin. You have no choice. Your choice is to take it or die. So this is about freedom for you and your loved ones. So I'm ready for questions.
All right, let's go through some of these because they're starting to pile in. But first one is, and by the way, thank you. Someone said I misspelled Asante. I apologize. But Bob Domini writes, this webinar is so excellent. So that's more of a question. And Mike asked, how is it that you take a Kia? And I know you addressed that briefly, but it is a powder that you take that you mix.
Sure, a
And
key is powder, and you mix it with water or mix it with any liquid that doesn't have very many calories in it. I particularly like mine with almond milk, the low-calorie almond milk, and that gives it a very smooth flavor. And it, on the days that I'm doing a cleanse, I'll do 5 or 6 of these, and I'm actually filled up. So you mix it with any non-caloric or low-caloric liquid.
yeah, and it's really interesting. One of my clients, some people know that I helped do marketing for a lot of different companies. It was my business, as I would do marketing for network marketing companies. And
Your 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 speaker is starting to.
yeah, I just lost it. I should be back. I apologize. But one of the things that I saw in my research is that these products that have the ability to do pre-digestion through this process were very powerful and very easy for people to digest.
Yes, that's true. That's the wisdom behind fermenting these superfood products.
All right, Doc, can you discuss some of the bad effects of the weight loss surgeries and the failures and risks of these weight loss surgeries?
Sure. It's interesting. I scrubbed in on the very first weight loss surgery at the University of Arizona. That's almost 40 years ago. We used to detour the intestines, and people got sick. They had malabsorptions, they had diarrhea. We have some other ones that are uh, less complicated now. The gastric bypass, which diverts the food away from the first portion of the intestines, and the stapling and the banding and those kind of things. And if you have the bypasses, it changes your physiology forever. What happens is it dumps the sugar, instead of it being diluted and absorbed in the stomach, it dumps it down in the intestine, and so it punishes people because they get very sick if they do very much sugar. So in a way, it is forcing them not to do it anymore. But it leaves people with vitamin deficiencies. It leaves people with lots of other complications, and it's desperation, and sometimes surgery works, but it's fraught with lots of complications.
Well, Doc, there is so
And it
many
doesn't.
thank yous so far for what you have been sharing. I can't share all of them, so there's so many people that are just saying everything from God bless you to thank you for being on here. One of the main questions, and that's some of the questions that I can answer, people are asking about a replicated site. I do know from having gone from the last Partners Council that they're very much dedicated to improving a lot of the different logistics and ordering. And new replicated sites are not the top priority. However, at the Las Vegas event, we're going to be training on some of the new replicated sites that we have within the income system that should be launching here soon, that will have these Asante products on them that are a part of the education process. And a lot of the tools, a lot of times in the field, we can move faster than corporate. And I think you guys are going to see not just these amazing speakers we're going to have, but we're going to go through some of the basics, and a lot of that's going to have Doc there. We're going to be creating tools at the event that you're going to be able to use going forward, and even this webinar itself will be available to you. But you'd be amazed how many people are just so excited about this, and a lot of people are asking on this about the Asante products and education into the Slenderize program. And I think that that's one of my missions with Doc now is now that I kind of have my world travels done until next month, is to start integrating some more of these things and providing some real tools for you guys. And we're going to be explaining some of those in the Las Vegas event of what we're going to be doing to help you guys marry some of these amazing products together. So let me see what else Scott Blees writes, um, Doc Jeff, Doc and Jeff, I've done a few cleanses with IS2 and Akia, and have been taking them for over a year and have never felt better. That's awesome to hear. Barry and Cindy love the products. Diana Foley can never be without her IS2, Akia, and Roll Weight. And guys, and it's really our responsibility within the business to make sure that we continue to spread this message so we continue to have these amazing products. This is a comment from Diana, and I know Diana has taken both of the products for quite some time. She says, I mix my Pure Nourish and Beauty Boost with the Kia every morning. And that's what's great about, some people may say we have a lot of different products here. Well, the great part about the products that the companies bring in, and even anybody who knows the RX seal of approval, they can't be fairy dusted with the ingredients. And that's a question that was on there as well. Is this just kind of fairy dusted with ingredients? And I know that for it to be in the product line, it's something that was vetted very aggressively to make sure that it's something that's going to work. A different question, and Doc, there are so many questions coming in. We're not going to have time to be able to answer all of them. But just finish up with just what would be your encouragement to somebody who may have lost hope with this and believes that they don't have an answer? What would you tell them?
Well, I'm very sympathetic. We've all been on a diet of one kind or another, and almost all of us have ultimately failed. And so uh, it's frustrating. And everybody you talk to and try to present a solution to them, they've been on a diet, they've tried. Lots of folks have just given up. And I think the important thing to emphasize, and we have to approach people with love, but the important thing that we have to tell them is it's not your fault. You've been led astray by some very powerful financial interests, and your ill health is benefiting them. And for you to be happy and free from those disorders, you need to do something different. And so everybody's frustrated, so we have to be very careful. But I think the key is it's not your fault.
Well, and Doc, as these comments continue to come in, there's some people that I'm sure as they go through this have asked the compliment. That's a question that came up a lot. And the great thing about this is they really do work together, and the ingredients are different within them. And one of the things that it doesn't matter how much research you do, the diversification of ingredients and micronutrients that come into the body, the more likely the body can fuel itself. I have been an avid user of Nutrify products for, well, since they came out. And as I travel with the RX executives and especially Deanna, I just see the amazing amount of care that goes into these Nutrify line. And as we started to bring the Asante team over, and as we started to bring the Asante products into it, it was exciting to see how it is that they start to work together, how it is that the people who were using those previously have started to use them. And realistically, the beautiful part about our business and the beautiful part about this amazing product line that we have is you have the ability to truly choose the program and the ingredients that best work for you. And what I have found is there's almost nothing I don't take within RX, and that's the same thing that with these Asante products is. I am a big fan of MOA. I love it, and my children love IS too. And it's the kind of thing as you start to go through it with the IKEA and just this love of what we are doing here within RX and the expertise of what we have. These products are great. They work well with what we have, and I'm so excited to be able to see these amazing comments coming in. I'm sorry I couldn't read them all to you, Doc. But thank you so much for being on, and we are truly grateful for the expertise that you bring to us here at RX.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. We're looking forward to seeing a lot of you in Las Vegas.
And Doc is going to spend as much time as you need, not only in the breaks, but also in this question and answer period. So make sure we'll put that on the screen. Make sure that you're with us. We're excited for the people who are going to be there, and it's going to be a great 16th and 17th, all the way from the East Coast to the West Coast. So thank you for being on, everyone. Good night.